for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you stopping by. Welcome to my workshop here. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit that little subscribe button. I'd love for you to follow along. It's National Welding Month, and I'm here to tell you today about my favorite little welding machine. Now, before we get started, I want to give you a little context, a little note on me. I work for myself here in this small little shop in Newfoundland, and primarily, I'm a knife maker. I own KN Knives, founded KN Knives, and that is what I do for the most part, in addition to content production and other things like that. There's a whole list, but primarily a knife maker. I restore and repair knives for clients from all around the world. From knife making even up to building a truck here, which was quite a bit of fabrication work. This was quite an extensive project that I bought this last year as a motorhome, a 1976 RV. It's not finished yet. .350 SBC with less than 53,000 original miles. Vintage muscle. We converted it into a flat deck. I had been dreaming for a few years about this build, thinking it's almost the perfect scenario. You have the perfect rig. It's like dually flatbed trucks, 1-ton trucks are expensive to buy. So we built one. We still have a bunch of loose ends to tie up on it, but it's really come a long way. Let's get out and talk more about it. And we're back in the shop. Look at that beautiful sun we got shining in the window here. Beautiful day here. So the 140 MultiProcess is labeled MultiProcess because it does a lot of different welding processes. Instead of having a dedicated wire feed, say a MIG machine or a dedicated TIG machine, the MultiProcess really does it all. Now you do get some drawbacks with that, but the main reason I purchased it, and here's its shining moment, here's its niche. It's really affordable for how much you get, and it's a big space savings. This machine can do gas-fed MIG welding, it can do flux core welding, so both types of wire feed. It can run an aluminum spool gun, it can run a foot pedal and a TIG torch, and it can run your standard stick arc welding. If you had to have the machine separate to do all that, it would be an enormous expense, and it would take up an amount of real estate that my little shop here just can't handle. I need something compact, but I still want to have all those cool features. I really love to run TIG. I love to run wire feed. Those are my two main processes, but I want those different abilities without an enormous initial investment and without taking up a lot of shop space. This is one unit on one cart here in the corner of my shop. Okay, let's give you guys a look at the interface here. So this is your main port for your wire feed, your TIG torch, your stick welder. Over here, one of these will be your ground, and then you switch back and forth depending on the polarity you need. You have these really nice like cam lock, twist lock type design, and these switch back and forth depending, like I said, on your polarity. And then right down here, we have a little 8-pin configuration, and the number of pins on here will change depending on what attachment you're running. So right now I'm set up for TIG, so this is for the TIG foot pedal, so we have 7 of the 8 pins connected. Now if you're like me, you want to experience as much as possible before buying something, and if in a case like me, if you're buying it online, you really want that extra info. So here's an up close look. The buttons feel really good. This is a selector switch here, and you can see these light up for TIG, stick, and wire. So you'll use wire for if you're running gas, or if you're running flux core, it's the same. If you're running TIG with foot pedal, it will automatically select it for you. You won't have to cycle through, but you can see very no frills design. Right here you have your wire feed speed. So this applies whether you're running the aluminum spool gun or flux core or MIG welding, this will apply. If you switch to the TIG setting, this function doesn't do anything. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's on 10, 0, anywhere in between. does not matter. You'll notice these aren't graduated adjustments. It's an infinite adjustment, which is very nice. Now we have our gas input on the back. We have our 120 volt power supply cable. We have a reset button here, should you need it. You overheat or something like that. Then you have your main power switch on the back. Now here's your volt amperage control. And you might be noticing there are letter designations. It doesn't actually tell you a number for the amperage. Now the reason for this, why they don't have number designations, is because depending on which function you're on, that will change the amount of amperage here, because different types of welding require different types of outputs. So as you can see right here in the manual, it tells you each letter designation and the number of volts, or in the case of MIG welding, or the current output. So you see TIG, this is the beauty of TIG and why I wanted it, lets you run right down to a measly 10 amps, which when you're doing knife work and stuff, that's a beautiful thing to be able to run that little of voltage. Stick, you can run from 25 to 90 amps, and MIG is measured in voltage, as you can see, from 13 to 21.5. So those letter designations will change based on which selection you make. Now this welder runs exclusively on 120 or 110 volt power, which is enough for me here in the shop right now, but one of its limitations, of course, being only a 110 unit compared to being able to plug into 240 power as well, you are a little bit limited on gauge material you can use. The one other drawback besides power is in being a multi-use machine, multi-process, you can imagine it's not that quick to change out between features. You don't just want to be all day long switching between TIG and wire feed. Now switching from TIG to any of the other ones is pretty quick. It really doesn't take long. Unscrew the cam locks here, make your adjustments. But of course, if you've got the wire feed set up, you either have to cut off your wire and lose the full lead length of wire, or you have to wheel it back, which manufacturers don't recommend re-spooling your wire, but I do that here in my shop with no problems because I don't want to lose the expense of all that wire. Now let's take a look inside. Really nice snap latch there. I really like that. You can run a 2-pound spool on there as well, so that's nice. You've got the room and the adapter to do that. You have one switch right here. If you're running a spool gun, you need to flip that switch, but that's the only time you touch that. And then you have your feed mechanism right here. Now let's take a look at the underside, the inside of the cover here. We have a full dimension. This is really large, really easy to read, like a configuration, a quick setup chart. And you'll want this because even though I've been using this machine for about a year now, when you're changing around all your attachments, you want to make sure you've got it right. So it's a quick start guide, so tell you where to switch your polarity, what to plug in where. And this is nice to as a quick reference. I'm really glad they put this in. It's important, and it allows you to check, your gauge thicknesses and what are roughly the appropriate settings. And I found these to be quite useful. They're pretty accurate, pretty dead on. Now, should you want to TIG weld with this unit, which if you have a unit like this, you probably are going to want to be TIG welding, here is the basic wand that comes with the kit. You can buy this and use this separate from the foot pedal. You don't need the foot pedal, so that's pretty cool. You can kind of get into TIG a little cheaper. I believe this unit here, this wand, is about $200 Canadian. Now, I have the TIG foot pedal here. You can see the model designation K4361-1, the amp troll pedal. So this both engages your current. You hear that clicker switch, but it also has basically like a potentiometer in there where the more you depress the pedal, the more amperage you get. And this is beautiful. It allows you to not need to scratch start TIG in the same way. So this will initiate your arc for you. But it also, the way it works, because you might be wondering, you have an amperage control here, and this is an amperage control. So basically, once you switch to TIG setting and your pedal's plugged in, this dial becomes your capacity. So for example, G here is, I believe, 95 amps when you're under the TIG setting. So if you set it to G, then you will have up to 95 amps with a full depression of the pedal. If you only wanted 10 amps at most, you'd turn your dial all the way down, which is 10 amps, and even with a full depression of this pedal, you would only have 10 amps. If you're familiar with music equipment, this is like your gain, and this is like your slider control here. So this will set the max range for the pedal here. So it's really nice setup. It's pretty basic. Your wire feed gun, of course, comes standard here. So this is the main connection, and we have a branch off electrical connector as well with only 2 pins. So this would control your gas feed, I believe, when that's running. And then you have Lincoln's standard wire feed controller as well, which this one is set up for flux core right now. You see I don't have like an enclosure nozzle on there. Pretty standard clamp style connection for running welding rods as well. You can place them, of course, at different angles because of the way the teeth are in there. And this just connects up to the wire. Very simple. Take off this little housing. You kind of set it up yourself. So that is your Lincoln 140 multi-process welder. And like I said, just such a beautiful unit. Another limitation you do have is that it only runs DC regarding TIG. So you can't TIG aluminum with it, say. You can TIG steel, stainless steel, any type of mild steel, tool steel, things like that. Anything that you can use DC voltage for, you can run this machine. It really gives you a lot of options, but of course you do have those few limitations as well. There's only so much you can put in one machine, and especially at this price point, before you start getting a few limitations there, you get a little bit of a ceiling. But in terms of what you get, the value for the price and the quality of machine here is just incredible, and I love it so much. I imagine it'll be a part of my shop here for a very long time. So if you like this video, hit that like button. Please leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you have any more questions about this machine. If you'd like my opinions, I'll read all those comments and I'll answer them as I can. If there's something I didn't cover and you're wondering about, I'd love to help you guys out and answer that. Now, you probably saw around this video somewhere a little sponsored video tag. I bought this machine myself, but I have since been sponsored by Lincoln, who have graciously offered up some of the accessories and the different things here for the shop. The spool gun, the TIG setup, and some of the other gear we have here. I'm so thankful for that. But I just wanted to make that clear to you guys. Like I said, I chose and bought this machine out of my own limited pocket about a year ago, and been so happy with it. But we've been fortunate enough to have received a sponsorship and some help from Lincoln Electric, so that's really, really awesome. That's all for this video. Again, leave me a comment down below if there's anything else that I can answer for you. I hope to see you in the next video.